So let's give Dave a round of applause and a warm welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Welcome back from the Demo Expo. Let's hear it again for all the students. You know, I'm spoiled because I get to be inspired by students every day here. So I bet you're feeling some of that inspiration. And I'm going to potentially change that mood. So, as I said, I've been fortunate to be with the NYC Media Lab since its start. And I've evolved along with it in many ways. Maybe some of you have seen me present research and attempts to commercialize it with the support of lab members up here. Maybe it was the experience of trying to build a data economy startup that brought me to where I stand here today. The two biggest companies, Facebook and Google, emerged from academia, Harvard and Stanford accordingly. We thought about these inventions as positive for society, or at least benign. But now a different picture is emerging that isn't so simple. This is the story of how we are learning our lessons in 3 short acts. Act 1. The titans of Silicon Valley, in a ruthless battle to capture multiple markets, put military-grade PSYOP weapons in the hands of anyone in the world looking to change behavior at scale. Since the dawn of the millennium, advertising that was conventionally understood as arrangements of images, text, and logos vying for our mass media attention and income became something else entirely. Tech platforms that offer indispensable services like search and social media sell access to our susceptibilities by collecting and combining as much of our behavior data as possible. Advertisers buy our attention on these platforms because they believe they can reduce their wasted ad spending. They've been sold the snake oil that Wanamaker's rule is actually a problem and that it is solvable. DoubleClick essentially invented the banner ad business and instituted the impression measurement and ensuing behavioral tracking model. It was acquired by Google in 2008. The parent company, Alphabet, now owns 10 of the top 20 ad tech domains on the web by ubiquity, according to the Princeton Web Census. And of course, Facebook owns the other big ones. Your DoubleClick cookie browser history was merged with your Google account in June of 2016. Facebook combined your browsing history into your Facebook profile in 2014, but it took 2 years to provide a control to opt out and come clean about it in a confusing manner. And I do believe if I didn't notice it, reporters may not have written about it. Google and Facebook all but won this market in 2016, capturing the share of growth at an astonishing quarterly velocity. 93% of all US growth in digital advertising, according to eMarketer, and 60% of all digital spending in 2017 went to the duopoly. Just looking at the ad market, the duopoly is now capturing $21 billion, leaving publishers their 30% cut for creating the content. That's after deducting $11 billion of fraud and $2 billion for the ad tech industrial complex, which imposes an ad blocking penalty which only publishers pay for. These companies made a huge leap in marketing surveillance and personalization capabilities, but no one noticed. They certainly were not considering the downstream effects on civil society of further maximizing the strength and reach of their targeting, tech available to anyone, while disrupting, monopolizing, and weakening legacy media markets along the way. People can be nudged for pennies in bulk with a few clicks, especially when they're not aware that 170 Facebook likes on average will expose their ethnicity, gender, sexuality, political party, religion, relationship status, whether their parents got divorced, whether they smoke, drink, or use drugs. People expect to volunteer these attributes. They don't understand how they can be used against them as susceptibilities for finding propensities to perform desired behaviors like buying things, sharing more personal information, contributing uncompensated labor, voting, not voting. What was once a domestic industry of US-based voter analytics firms has become an international operation since 2016. From my own legal investigations, I can tell you that Cambridge Analytica is an international company. US voter data appears to have been processed in the United Kingdom based on solid legal advice that I'm receiving. This is not normal. Furthermore, the parent company of SCL has no bid contracts with the State Department and presumably NSA, but we can't be for sure. A military contractor appears to be processing enriched US voter files. How can this be acceptable? Voter analytics must not be militarized. This is not normal. We've learned that Facebook managed to exempt itself from the FEC through Don't Stifle Innovation lobbying. Under immense pressure now, the company proposed to distinguish political ads from the rest of its business in a race to preempt the guardrails being erected for them. The investigations into foreign interference in our electoral process and deployment of information warfare, weapons, and foreign intelligence operations on our social media have demonstrated the dire need to revisit the FEC's role in regulating digital political ads, at least equivalently to television. But the real question remains, will Americans realize that Silicon Valley's capture of our privacy rights threatens our democracy to its core? And will we realize that the FTC will not protect us? Will the EU serve as the de facto privacy regulator for the global data economy? The same psychologist, data science researcher that helped incept us into this world of a new internationalized, militarized, psychographic voter modeling paradigm is helping to usher in a dark new age of AI phrenology, where computer vision and facial recognition algorithms are touted to predict sexuality and IQ. However, because this Silicon Valley libertarian mindset tends to discount the whole realm of social sciences, they fail to see how the assumptions upon which they build dystopian algorithms are naively phobic and bluntly oversimplify the human condition to make their data yield the desired predictability. Ian Bogost has asked us if the engineers of the new civic infrastructure have pledged to do no harm. You see, tools that were invented to test the most effective ski vacation ads and let the local band upload its fan list were used by the Trump campaign with the help of an international military contractor. It appears to be under federal investigation in the US and the UK under various auspices. Separate from the campaign's own ads, hyper-targeting decisive voters with voter depression messaging, we now know that foreign entities purchase the attention of Americans at scale. Some say reaching 30 million with a mere $150,000 ad spend, factoring in false amplification and virality.
Here's an example of editing a male voice.
But this is just the dawn of a dark age of simulations and artificiality. Soon illicit engines will use voter data analytics to synthesize artificial news clips and audio recordings of politicians as fabricated fictions.
Very early in my life as a child, I separated from my mother.
People will believe, or they want to believe.
And I kissed my wife and my dogs.
Whoa.
Wait, here's more, here's more. We can actually type something that's not here. So I heard that actually on that day, Michael actually kissed our Jordan. So
Sorry?
to recover the truth, let's do it. So let's remove the word my here.
Your secret's out, Jordan.
And just type the word Jordan.
Ooh.
And here we go.
And I kissed Jordan and my dogs.
Well,
You a witch. You a demon.
oh yeah, I have magic.
It's magic.
Like, I don't expect them to wonder if this video is real or not.
So what are you asking?
I'm asking, are you afraid of the power of this? And if not, why?
I'm just giving my, I don't know, I'm answering your questions, but I'm a technologist, I'm a computer scientist, so not really, because I know how to, I know that, because I know that this technology is reversible. I mean, nobody, well, there is not worried too much.
Are we ready to admit that are we ready to consider that the downstream effects of ad targeting and recommendation engines aren't well understood and aren't under adequate human supervision? If it wasn't for nonprofit news reporters poking into the belly of the beast that props up the house of cards that is the digital publishing industry, would this still be here? Are we ready to admit that the ad tech's dark and sludgy ecology of hidden third-party intermediaries, data syncing and re-identifying us across devices and geolocations, is itself infested with bots diverting billions to organized crime? Where did this dark world of bots attacking humans on social media come from? It came from ad tech, where social media bots can help evade fraudsters from weak detection schemes. The cat and mouse game of ad fraud ended up financing the R&D of the bot craft we see today, eroding faith in democracy and truth itself as part of an information operation of false amplification. I think we're beginning to see the beginning of some early signs of AI's emergence as machines start passing the Turing test, passing as humans, at scale, with impact. Whether intended or an observable side effect, Cambridge Analytica's psychographic voter models bear a disturbing correlation to identifying propensities for authoritarianism, as studied for the Brexit referendum by the Online Publishing Foundation. Note that votes were 78% predictive. People don't want to admit that propaganda works, or that bots matter, or that psychometrics aren't just snake oil, because to admit it means confronting our own susceptibilities, horrific lack of privacy, and hopeless dependency on tech platforms, ruining our democracies on various attack surfaces. What are we going to do about it? I think we should sue Cambridge Analytica in London. We'll need to raise a substantial legal defense fund up front to defend the initial plaintiffs, including myself. Americans don't realize that a British regulator is investigating a British company under British law for its involvement in our elections. I foresee the EU akin to the California Air Resources Board, governing the auto emission standards for the entire North American car market. If folks at your company are not looking at GDPR compliance and realizing this is a privacy reboot, they're not paying attention. Is this enough to protect elections? Or is this just public relations? I think it's up to all of us. The East Coast is the more enlightened coast. I've heard VCs talk to me about a new wave of data sovereignty startups, and as you can see, we need a new wave of media authentication and tamper-proof media, metadata authentication to prevent the effects of artificial reality. It's my job at Parsons to teach civics in every class that we teach, and I call upon my colleagues to review their curricula and pedagogies and reconsider the role of ethics and critical thinking surrounding media, privacy, democracy, and technology. I'm about to conclude, but you're going to hear some exciting announcements about how the NYC Media Lab is going to help New York mobilize on these issues in unity. I'll leave you with this. According to CBS News, Paul Horner, election hoaxer, fake news fraudster, who once told the Washington Post after the election in November that he thinks he helped get Trump elected, and appeared on RT in a segment from this screen grab. He was found dead this week. Toxicology reports are pending. Join the struggle to help get our data back. If you want to join the struggle, pull out your phone right now and send a blank email to voterdata.join@mfadt.parsons.edu. And follow me on Twitter and Medium. We have big things that are about to happen. But I want to thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to bring the lights up just a little bit. We've got a few minutes for some questions. And there are mics in the room, and we're recording this, so if you don't mind, I'd like you to wait for the mic. So who's got a question for David Carroll? Someone must. Yes, sir.
Hi, I really appreciate your talk. I have a question. I'm over here. Hey, the really attractive Asian guy. So the question I have for you is, so let's say you manage to get to Cambridge Analytica. Let's say you manage to upend them. I feel like the internet in general has been kind of a whack-a-mole, right? Like, you can get Napster. There'll be some other way of taking advantage of this data. If you stop foreign entities from doing it, then what's to stop American entities from doing it? And, really, in a post-Citizens United kind of a world, all money is essentially equal to speech, and in America it's guaranteed. So let's say an American entity wanted to guarantee their speech by spending money this way. It's going to be pretty difficult, especially in a Gorsuch Supreme Court, to change that at this point. How do you propose to do that?
How in the world do we put the genie back in the bottle?
I'm not suggesting censorship. I'm suggesting equal rights. Americans don't have equal data protection rights as Europeans. We do not have the fundamental right of access. Europeans can ask a company, give me the data that you have on me, and they have to give it to you. We do not have that right in the United States. So that is the fundamental right that we are going to fight for. And in many ways, companies will be forced to give that right anyway to be GDPR compliant. So it's actually not a very difficult fight. And in many ways, the industry will do it for us. Because in their effort to be GDPR compliant, they will grant Americans rights that we don't have and our government probably won't give us.
Another question.
Yeah.
Where have I got one? I've got one over here.
I have one. Hi, I'm Cass Storr. I'm a data scientist. I covered the elections. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how the Clinton team used data and sort of share that part of the story. Thanks.
Sure. As far as I understood what I've read about, the Clinton team used the Alexa Siri idea, where they had an AI bot called Ada, and they asked Ada questions, and Ada told them what to do. And so Ada never said to campaign in Wisconsin, so they never did. And I think it was a huge failure of believing too much in AI and not being skeptical enough of AI and being totally dazzled by the shiny object of AI instead of human intelligence.
Another question? Yes, sir. Nick down here in the front.
Hi, Nick Katzball.
Use the mic there, Mike.
Yep. My question is, a big part of what happens in technology today, the products we use are all financed through advertising. And advertising technology is what drove all of this. Do we need to find a different monetization method for people and drain the swamp and take advertising out of communication?
Well, in the short term, I think that GDPR will change the advertising industry to be less greedy with data and to potentially recognize that Wanamaker's rule cannot be solved, and all attempts to solve it backfire. If you have seen the Financial Times released this week, the jaw-dropping amount of ad fraud that their site is suffering from what's called domain spoofing. So we just have to get real about what are the numbers? If a fifth of Twitter is fake, if Facebook is deleting 1 million accounts per day, the numbers are a lie. It's time to accept that, maybe.
We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Where's another one? Right there in the middle. See if the mic can get to you, sir.
I was just curious, outside of the judicial and legislative system, how do you think you can convince the general public that this is something they should be concerned about, and how do you overcome the apathy?
It's my hope when Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey are dragged down to Congress and have to explain themselves to the American people, that will open more eyes than are already open. When they hear it from their mouths how their business model caused this problem. And I think there's a lot more that hasn't yet come out. And when it does, more people are going to be awakened to this. So just give it time. It'll happen, I think.
Time for perhaps one more question. Is there one more question in the audience? I've got one up there in the back. Let's see. If you don't mind, sir, just 1 second, the mic get to you.
Do you know the company behind Cambridge?
Sure. So when we requested our data, we found out that the registered data controller for Cambridge Analytica LLC is a company called SCL Elections based in London. That's the company who has all U.S. voter data. That's the data controller, so the registered regulated entity. That's part of a company called SCL Group, a company that has done information operations and election management around the world. They're currently operating in Mexico. They operated in Kenya. They are currently hired to help unseat Jeff Flake in the Arizona primary. They're getting geared up for the 2018 elections, and it's been said that they also donated their services for the Brexit referendum. So basically a military contractor, and Cambridge Analytica is the brand used for voter work.
I think that brings us to our conclusion. Let's thank David Carroll.